Hey VGA crew, Mike and Mari here with the question of the week. Question of the week, of course, was when it comes to movie adaptations of video games, do you prefer like a straight up adaptation, or do you want something that's going to be different and bring something new to the table? For me, honestly, when it comes to adaptations, I have a lot of mixed feelings about it. I have nothing against having something that's going to be new to an adaptation, adding something to it. It's not often an author gets a second crack or another writer gets a second crack at a story. And there are some great examples of adaptations that were really improved because of changes that were made, usually coming from the world of books or comics or things like that. One of my favorite adaptations is from a Stephen King story called Secret Window. Was made into a Johnny Depp movie, and the ending for that movie was so much better than the ending to the book. The same thing with Fellowship of the Ring. I love the Lord of the Rings books, but I love the adaptation of Fellowship of the Ring, and really the Lord of the Rings trilogy, because it does the thing that an adaptation should. It takes the heart of the story and the heart of who the characters are and keeps those true to the original source material. That's the key here. If you make the characters feel like and act like the characters from the story that we love, and you make the heart of the story, the point of the story, the reason for existence of the story the same, then it doesn't matter what you're changing around it. Fellowship of the Ring is one of my favorite adaptations ever done, and they change and move and take out so many things, but it feels like the same story. It feels like those characters. And so I don't mind the changes. I don't mind the improvements that they make, and it becomes an enjoyable experience. In stark contrast to that, you have the trilogy of Batman movies that Nolan gave us, where you have Batman Begins, you have The Dark Knight, and then you have The Dark Knight Rises. Batman Begins works because it feels like a year one story. It's not exactly Frank Miller's year one, but it feels like that year one story. The characters' motivations, who they are, why they're doing what they're doing, all fit in with that story. Same thing with Dark Knight. Dark Knight feels like Batman and Joker and Gordon without them being carbon copies. Like, they're not exactly the same. You know, Heath Ledger's Joker is Heath Ledger's Joker, but he also is recognizably the Joker. Whereas you take a look at The Dark Knight Rises, Batman's not acting in a way that Batman would act. Batman is not acting in a way that you would expect him to carry on his life post Dark Knight. Batman is not someone who just gives up because, hey, things seem to be okay now. No, Batman's whole reason for existence is that vengeance against crime. He'll find somewhere else that needs him, even if Gotham doesn't need him anymore. And so something like that rubs me the wrong way when I see an adaptation. Same thing for video games. Now, video games make it a little harder because sometimes you don't have that stark of a character trait. Sometimes your storyline isn't as rigid as a book or something like that. So I'm okay with them changing things around and doing new things so long as the heart of the story stays intact. This was the problem with the Resident Evil movies, and I'm assuming is the problem with the most recent Monster Hunter movie. Those movies just don't quite get what made the stories special, don't quite get what made the stories of the Resident Evil games, and just increasingly made them frustrating to watch for anyone who is familiar with the stories. Thank you for being with me this week, guys, and look forward to being with you again next week.